Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. Today I have Laura Cortez joining me. Laura, thanks for hopping on to chat.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
For sure. First question, who is Laura?
Oh, no. I've thought about this question this morning, and I listened to some other podcasts from you earlier to get some ideas, but now I'm blanking. I am Laura. I'm 26, and I think first and foremost, I am two things, like a dog mom, and then also just like an intersectional environmentalist. I think being a dog mom and kind of being active in the environment and all the things that encompasses are just two really big things that have taken over my life in the past couple of years.
And how did you get there? Not the dog mom part, but the active in the environment. Being the dog mom needs no explanation. That's a given.
Yeah. So I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and there, the environment just wasn't too much of a conversation. There was not really a space for, I guess, anything like that. And then I moved to Colorado back in 2018, and it just kind of felt like concerns around the environment and just education was everywhere concerning those things. And since then, it's just become a very kind of central part of my life. And after getting into trail running a lot more in Colorado, I think that the two just kind of go hand in hand. And I've learned a lot about the environment through trail running, obviously. And it just kind of became this curiosity thing in my life. I'm like a 5-year-old constantly asking why and asking a lot of questions about it, which I think is fairly positive.
Yeah, that's. I think asking why is always a good practice, and that's sort of the basis behind this podcast with applying it to running specifically. So, what is it about the focus on the environment that is so important to you?
Yeah, so I guess just kind of going beyond day-to-day stuff, just kind of seeing how it really affects communities, and I guess more specifically in a trail running space. Growing up, I never knew that trail running was a thing, and I mean, I think again it was just the environment that I lived in San Antonio and just kind of general accessibility to it. So now, kind of having lived in Texas and Oregon, and now Colorado, just seeing the different types of environments that just kind of Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color kind of tend to find themselves in, is just what creates this an accessibility to it. So I think now just my questions and work with the environment is around why are things like this happening, and kind of assessing just the environments that I do see people of color in a lot, or I do see people of color in more often, sorry. And so I'm looking at it there and seeing the ways that I can help, and just again in trail running, just assessing the why is it that people of color aren't on the trails more often? Is it accessibility? Is it the environment that they find themselves in that goes beyond just access to the outdoors? Is it family related and just the people who they end up surrounding themselves with? I just think there's a lot of really big questions there, and just kind of taking that journey is something that I find to be super important to my own personal growth, and understanding my own background has just become super important.
It's fascinating. I saw a tweet yesterday basically asking what are some of your favorite cities across the U.S. that have less than 80,000 people and awesome, just some of your favorite cities across the U.S., less than 80,000 people. And I answered I answered a couple of my favorite mountain towns, and another friend jumped in and said, "Oh, interesting. Those are all pretty homogeneous populations, and there are no people of color there." And specifically, in the higher range of 80,000. So like 80,000 to 100,000 is what it ended up being. So Boulder, Flagstaff, Bend, cities like that where it it is not diverse. And I didn't make the comment, thinking much about diversity, but thinking more about it, I sort of hit a dead end. Like I don't know any cities that fit that profile that are diverse. So it was just an interesting reflection and interesting timing on on this conversation because I want to know, like, first, where did that specific interest come from for you? I know you mentioned that it's important, but I want to know where that comes from.
Yeah, it's just like for me, like personally, like I mean, I'm from South Texas down there. Like all my friends are, of like color and like primarily a Mexican heritage. And then just kind of moving even to North Texas for university, like it was still a bit diverse there just because we have like the Dallas area coming in for university as well. But then like moving to Portland, and I think that's where probably honestly like this whole kind of interest really started developing because like I loved Portland. I thought it was so much fun there, but I just never felt like home. And I would join
Mhm.
running clubs and do this and that because I was like, oh, well, like as long as I surround myself by like a running community, I think that it'll feel more at home. But the more I did that, the more just kind of like alone I felt. And it wasn't until I moved to Colorado and my roommate, Tanya, she was the one who was like giving me the words to express how I feel about it all. And just kind of, this is just like a weird kind of, I guess, conversation that I feel like a lot of kind of like Black, Indigenous, and people of color families, like, do you probably have a talk about every so often? Like, I know with my own family, it's just kind of this weird topic to navigate because we're kind of our background and being in the outdoors just isn't very, I guess, great. Like we went camping when we were little, but it was never something that was like, oh my God, we have to go do this every weekend. Like, how cool. Let's go learn about it. And then just kind of learning more about other people who look like me, who had similar experiences growing up and like why, whether it's because like growing up being in the outdoors was like, oh, like if you have money, then you're inside because then you can afford to be inside and like do all these fun things in the summer. But if you don't have a lot of money, then you are outside more often. So I think that there is just some underlying stigma there. And actually,
Mhm.
sorry, no, I'm just rambling. Um,
It's great for podcasts.
yeah. My mom and I loosely had a conversation about something similar to this a few days ago, and like where we just kind of parted ways on it, I guess, was that I mean, you see minority people living in higher income areas like all around California and stuff like that. But our kind of separation on that topic was that my feelings, kind of like the research I've done that I've read up on, is like the minority population, yes, they are living in California in those like higher income places, but their standard of living there just isn't so great. And the places that they have to live there for work just aren't that great compared to like a bunch of other people who live in California who like are white and do have that higher income who can afford to live in California like comfortably. So I just think that there is just, I mean, a lot to unpack with it. And like, I just get curious. It's like, what can I do to like help make the trail safer or like feel more welcoming for other people of color? So I think just in the end, that's just where all my questions come from is like, what else can I do? And like, how do I address these underlying issues to help my generation, to help older like people of color who are runners, and to like also help their kids just get out, just kind of create that environment that's welcoming for them.
So what have you done? What can we do? What are the things that an individual can do to create change and progress?
I guess just like on my end, like I swear, like so I think Colorado is like my Disney World where just anything can happen. Like I I've come across the absolute best luck since being here. Like that includes like the running community I found myself in, like David Roche. Like he was just
Mhm.
him and Megan are amazing people and great coaches. And then also like more locally, like in the Denver area. I've like actually met like on my own ish, like some other like runners of like Latino or Hispanic background. And at least like what we're doing on our end, which we've been plotting for a while but are finally putting into action, is like having like a Latino Hispanic trail running group. Just kind of like to promote that trail safety and education there. And then my other friend Meredith and I, we were going to have a kids camp this summer, but of course COVID happened. Um, and we were going to promote it to like inner city schools and just kind of like schools all around the Denver area to help get kids out on the trail for the summer and just have it be like a free thing. So if, your parents have to go do whatever in the evening, and like, especially like for inner city kids, if their parents are doing like additional education or something, then we can just like go grab the kids, take them out for a few hours on the trail and stuff. Just kind of provide like that free way of taking like basically free childcare, I guess. And in a way that's like super engaging for them. So those like my two big things right now. And like, I guess for other people, it's just kind of more than anything, just like asking like, why do I not see people of color on the trail? Because like at the same time, as inclusive as everyone wants to be, it's also kind of a balance between like being inclusive and then like not pitting your Black, Indigenous, person of color into a situation with other people who like aren't welcoming and aren't aware. And that's just, like not a fun situation for anyone to have to be in. So it's just like kind of you don't have to ask yourself like why and like what you can do and what you want to do, and like if the environment that you're in is even safe enough for someone else who is like quote unquote like an outsider kind of thing.
Definitely. So I listened to Camila Jornet on the Morning Shakeout podcast, and she had a fascinating perspective as a Black distance runner who has worked in marketing for her whole career. And so the principles of marketing, and I know your background is in marketing as well, the principles of marketing are perfectly at play for how to increase diversity in the sport, because the way that somebody buys something is they go to a website or they go to a store, or they go to some community where they can see themselves, or they can relate to the website or the testimonials or the user journey that company is trying to describe and sell, for lack of a better word. And that's exactly how we do it in trail running, which is my opinion. I think that's, if you don't see people that look like you, that, are like you, whatnot, it's going to be hard to create any sort of change. And then there's the sort of downstream effect of the lack of access to a sport that is good for cardiovascular health, right? The minority groups are at a higher risk for, or statistically overrepresented with cardiovascular disease, and any of these health outcomes that can be alleviated through activity. So it's like you have a problem and you have an outcome, and the solution to both is more of the activity. So I think it presents a chicken and egg type dilemma. Like, where do you go first? How do you get more people into the community so that more people can get into the community? It's like, well, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, and definitely something that I think like gets overlooked too. Like, so first of all, Camilla, I just discovered her a few weeks ago, and I've become like just such a big fan of all of her work that she's doing. Hey Camilla, if you're listening.
But she's gonna be on the podcast tomorrow, so I'll tell her she's got some super fans.
But yeah, no, I mean that's like definitely like something that has come to play even in my own life. Like my dad, he was like super active like my whole life, like soccer coach, paramedic, came to all my track meets, would go run with a weight vest for like a 5K almost every morning over hills in the neighborhood. just like this ultimate superhero of a person. And it just kind of seems like, again, being overrepresented in that area of like just kind of respiratory illnesses and like being more like susceptible to those things. Because then like maybe about 10 years ago-ish, 6 years ago, he got sick and now he like can't do any of that anymore. So it's just like his participation gone, and it's definitely like hereditary on the men's side of my family. So, and I can only imagine like obviously how prevalent it is for other like minority families too, to be like super healthy all your life and then suddenly have like just some cardiovascular illness happen to you, and like how that can affect the rest of your family's outlook on being that active and like the environment and being outside and running. Just kind of like, oh, well, my family has this history of like being super active and getting super sick. Like, how do I stay active and not get sick? Does, again, like one affect the other, and just kind of that conversation. So it's just like a hard thing to navigate, I think. And like, I don't have any answers for that. But yeah, it's just like a definitely like needed continued conversation for all of it, for sure. And
Definitely. So what got you into running?
I hated it at first. I think everyone does for the most part. But I grew up playing soccer, and then my brother, when he was in high school, he had to do cross country to play soccer, and then I found out that I had to do cross country to play soccer. So it just kind of that way, which I feel like a lot of runners kind of take. And then the whole cross country team was basically the whole soccer team. And then in the summers, we'd have like really fun, just like summer training and stuff. So it's like, it was an easy thing to like get involved in and stay with, just because over the summer, get up early, run some miles with our friends, hang out for a few hours. And it's just a good way to start the day. So I think that's like what really got me into running.
And then fast forward a few years and you're running 50Ks and winning 50Ks. What is that progression like?
I mean, it's been strange. Like in college, I was always good at distance running, but our team never like had like the, I guess, background and like doing super well or going to like the national level or anything. So like just to like come out to Colorado or even like some runs in Texas and just to like be winning or like placed in top 3 has just been like this absolutely insane thing to me. Like I'm looking at a 50K first place thing that I have on my wall right now. And I think about that race and how I spent like half an hour at an aid station crying because I thought I tore my foot in half. But it was a very slight case of plantar fasciitis. It's fine. And then coming out to win it and catching up to everyone else. So I just think it's been like a very fortunate progression that I've had.
And in a sport where you're definitely on the younger side compared to a lot of ultra runners who are 40s, 50s, 60s, what's that like?
It's cool. I think again, like just my running group in the area, like Ashley Brassam and I just moved to Lakewood and she's in Golden. So now we're like 10 minutes apart and we run fairly often together. So it's fun just having like her around, 'cause she's, I think, just a few years older than I am. But yeah, like being on a trail or just being at a race and knowing that I'm the youngest person out there, I get excited knowing or seeing like other people who are older in the sport and seeing how well they're doing with it. So I just get excited knowing that like that could be me one day, like be in my 50s and still like crushing 50Ks. Like that's really exciting.
And how did you get linked up with Swap? So David and Megan.
Oh my God. So it was when I was in college and I tweeted something about like downing a whole package of, what are they called? Wheat Thins. And he liked my tweet. And I didn't know who he was at first. So I went to his profile and I saw he was a coach. And then I think I was graduating the following year. So like I DM'd him then. And then I got back in touch with him once I graduated. And then it's just been like a blossoming relationship since then.
He's got to have a tweet alert set up anytime somebody tweets eating a full thing of X.
It was so funny. I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I looked him up and I was like, he's like a thing. Cool.
So you've been working with him. So how long have you been working with him?
God, I'm 26, so maybe like 4 years. And my running log with him is like in the thousands, I think. So
nice.
Math.
Yeah, I'm approaching, I think, day 700. So
oh my God,
I'm getting up there, but it feels like we just started yesterday.
Right? He's just a very
refreshing. What are some of the lessons you've learned from him that have been helpful for you?
I would say definitely like giving myself like grace just to like exist. Like he's been with me through like a lot of just like random things that have like just happened in life and stuff. And like I just appreciate that he's like not afraid to, gently call me out on like when I just step back and take a breath. Right. And then just kind of like having someone like him who I look up to for that, just like tell me like, hey, like give yourself grace and space and just like breathe for a sec and you're fine. Like if you can't run today, that's cool. And like, I think that's just like my probably favorite thing about him, like going from something like university running where it's like super structured and this and that to going to David where it's like, hey, like I can't run today because X, Y, and Z. And like, honestly, I still get like anxiety just thinking about telling him I can't run a day or something. But of course he's like, yeah, like it's fine. Like you're good. Life happens.
Yeah. I think the like, rest days, save seasons approach has been so helpful. Like I used to, anytime there was an unplanned rest day or even a planned rest day, it was like the worst thing in the world. And I would rather run through pain or injury or whatever just to like get the run done. And now, like a couple weeks ago, I wasn't sure. I texted him and I ended up running for 4 minutes and I stopped running. And literally as I stopped running, he replied to my text and was like, take the day off. And I was like, I just came to that conclusion. And it's so powerful to be able to have that ability to pull back when necessary. And I like to think of it as like a slingshot. Sometimes you have to pull back so that you can, spring forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way they have it set up, it's just like rest days can like help you break through like when you least expect it. I think that's just like so special to like buy into.
Yes. So how has 2020 impacted your running? What's been the change or where's your focus?
I mean, so like last year it was like a roller coaster of a year just emotionally with my health. So I think I was literally out once every quarter, which was, a thing. But this year I think it's just like been nice to like be able to sit and like I can just kind of plan out projects that I've been wanting to do for a while and not have to worry about like a race. And I know everyone's like super into Strava records and stuff right now. Like personally, I can't get into it. I think I'm just generally really bad at following directions on a trail regardless. So it's not for me.
Yeah.
But like I think it's just like fun, like right now, like, oh, I want to go do like a 50K run. Like my friend Victor is throwing together this huge like 100K run from his doorstep to the top of Mount Evans and back down. And so I'm not going to do all of it because that seems like a day, but I'm going to do 50K of it and just kind of go out there and hang out. So it's nice knowing that like we can have days like that now and not have to worry about like how it fits into like a training plan for a race or anything. So I just love
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I had David on the podcast a few weeks ago, and his biggest advice was like, remember, he had like a 4-point plan for runners, and one of the points was remember to have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's cool that you can go out and sort of not fun run a 50K, but have fun with some friends and run a 50K.
Yeah, and I love like that approach.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I love the fun approach. Like that's the best thing to have.
Definitely. What are some of your favorite spots to run in Colorado?
Ooh, um, that's a tough question. I love running in like the Mount Evans like wilderness area, like going up to Mount Evans and stuff. I think I'm doing that this weekend anyways. It's just so pretty out there. And then definitely anywhere in like Indian Peaks area, Indian Peaks wilderness. I just think it's so beautiful out there. Like any trail I've ever gone out there has been just like the best experience. Like out there was the first time I ever got lost for more than a few hours. So that was a big learning experience for me.
How many hours?
I think I was out there for maybe like 6 hours. Um, yeah, ended up being fine. Well, I had my dog with me, so I was like, oh my god, like she's not gonna make it. But there's tons of like lakes and like mountain water runoffs. So she had like
Yeah.
the best time, and I was just freaking out, like, oh my god, how do we get to the car? Um, but yeah, I honestly I don't think I could pick just like one spot. I think just general like Mount Evans Wilderness and Indian Peaks area, like they're just so pretty. I love all of them.
Yeah, this podcast for a while was a Boulder or a Colorado tourism promotion podcast. It seemed I go out there quite a bit, and so I have a lot of Colorado athletes on the podcast, and I think I had a stretch of like 4 or 5 in a row
Oh, really?
at one point, and I miss that area. I miss the mountains and all that good stuff. So glad to hear people are enjoying them, but right now I have to enjoy it through Instagram and photos of other people.
Where was your favorite place to run in Colorado?
I love Walker Ranch,
Mhm.
that loop just outside of Boulder. I've done Sanitas a couple of times. I haven't done much. I haven't done much outside of Boulder. I've been up to Steamboat Springs, and I've been down to Colorado Springs, where I did the Manitou Incline and the Bar Trail. But outside of that, it's been pretty much just like right in Boulder. I haven't done a 14er. I haven't done anything like that. The highest I've run was at 12,000 feet, at Loveland Pass, and that was just like, drive up, park the car, run. You start at 11,999 and run up to 12, and just like
Yeah,
absolutely gassed within 30 seconds,
that's
which is
tough.
yeah. And coming from sea level in Boston, it's a nice smack in the face. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm trying to think of ways to get out there for a more considerable amount of time. Let's just say that.
Please do.
um, so what goals do you have for the year? Or is it really just about getting out there and having fun?
I think, so I think you may have been able to allude to this, but I'm a really big procrastinator. So I procrastinated on signing up for really anything this year, except for Dead Horse in Moab in November for the 50K. Like that was my first 50K race I ever ran. And then so I want to do it again this year. I'm gonna obviously if things pan out for it, or if I feel like safe enough to do it. Um,
Hmm.
I'll love to go back out there and like go sub 4 hours for it. I think that'd be really cool. But otherwise, I just had so many like random projects like for Pass Loop and just a bunch of things like out in like the Aspen area and like Maroon Bells, just to go kind of look at and go plan. So once I stop procrastinating to get those set up, I think aside from Moab, I just want to go out and do a bunch of projects. When I first moved here, I was super into like huge weekends out with a tons of vert and like scrambling. So I definitely want to get into that more this year.
That's awesome. If you like scrambling, you would like running in New England.
Well, I like scrambling. I don't like all the routes that y'all have there.
I don't either. I'm really good at spraining my ankle, and um, that happens a lot out here.
Yeah, as fun as that sounds.
Yeah, right. David just tells me, "Oh, it's all part of the adventure. If you don't sprain your ankle, you're not doing it right." So,
Exactly.
mostly joking on that. But um, one of the questions I like to ask on the podcast is about balance. And what does balance mean to you? And I don't mean that in the ability to stand up and not sprain your ankle.
Well, balance, not great at much of it. Like, I think that's another thing that I've learned a lot from David is like how important balance is. And like, I think I'm just someone who's like very excited very quickly about almost everything. So I want to do everything and like balancing everything at once is difficult. So right now it's just kind of being fortunate, like so fortunate to be able to like have my job and work from home. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely trying to balance just like my time with the dogs. I got engaged back in, oh God, it was kind of recent. February, March, February. Um, and then just running. So like those are just my three like main things I'm focusing on right now, just kind of balancing them and like trying to structure time. Like my mornings are my mornings with like running and like with my girlfriends and with my dog to go run and then come back home and just kind of like be here and like be like centered around like Sage, my fiance, and our dogs, kind of like living with them and like enjoying every minute. And then the evenings, like very trying to get so much better about just turning off my computer and like not worrying about it. Cause like I feel like that's, I definitely get that from my dad about just like work, work, work. So I think I'm trying to break that habit now while I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to like set the boundaries. I saw a tweet this morning that said, "Let's stop calling it working from home and instead calling it living at work." And I think it hits the nail on the head because there are no physical boundaries anymore, and that allows work to bleed over into the evening or early in the morning or the weekends or whatever.
Mhm.
And I find myself doing the same thing. And the way I've balanced that, so like I'm working starting earlier in the morning and uh, on the weekends and later into the evening. But the way for me that I balance that is like I'll get up, I'll work, and then I'll go for a run at like 9 or 10 in the morning. And maybe then go for a bike ride at 4 or 5, and so like adding in a little bit more flexibility in the day, so it's not a rigid 9 to 5,
Yeah.
but more about like what works for me, and like as long as I get my work done, I don't see the breaking the day up in non-traditional ways to be a problem.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I feel like right now, with, like everyone just kind of trying to figure out what works for them. It's such a good time just kind of like reset and like, what do we want that kind of like 8 to 5 normal to look like? Because I'm a strong believer in like 40-hour work weeks until we're like 65 is just like not sustainable.
Right.
But yeah, I love that that's what you're doing. Like, kind of makes me feel a lot more sane for kind of thinking like there needs to be more flexibility. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like good validation to hear from you.
And so you work for do you work for Jackrabbit?
Yes.
So what do you do for them? That's another running specific job.
Yeah. So Jackrabbits. So like in Colorado, we are a boulder running company. Out in your kind of area in like the Northeast, we're Jackrabbit, and then we have, God, now I'm spacing a few other names that we are under. But so for Jackrabbit, like the headquarters, I do their digital marketing and email marketing campaigns. And then I work really closely with just a bunch of brands and just on like product launches and how to get it out. And then I manage a lot of like the paid search. So like ads on Google and like Google Shopping. So I have like a fun mix of things that I do every day.
Cool. And how did you get connected with them?
I when I first moved here, I was working for like this dental marketing agency, and then that went remote for about a month. And then I saw like this listing up on Indeed. And then they just kind of liked me enough to like give me a shot. So that was really cool.
And how do you like the mix of having what you do for work also be what you do for fun?
I like it a lot, I think. I think that like one of the more funny things about working in like the running world like that is like a lot of people in the office actually kind of hate running. So I love that, like, well, obviously we're not in the office now, but like on Slack or like any other like messaging, like we're not all talking about running, we're talking about just real life things. So
Yeah.
although like I work in running specifically, it's just like the culture and like the conversations we have like aren't all about running. So it feels like there is like some space there. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Cool. And what are some of the things that you know now that you wish you knew when you started running?
Oh, do not wear the same pair of shoes for like a year if you're running a lot. uh,
You learned that the hard way?
Oh, yeah. Like, I think yeah, it was rough. I was actually a few days ago looking at pictures from like high school, and I think I wore the same pair of shoes almost all 4 years. So
The same, not the same model, like literally the same pair of shoes.
I really want to say so. Like, I know I had like some random one offs, but there is a specific pair of Adidas shoes that were white and yellow, or white and red, sorry, that I loved. I don't know the model. I don't know anything about it, but I loved it, and I had to have it. And
That's awesome.
it's gross.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's it's impressive that you were able to, use the same pair without without issues.
Yeah, no
Or
clue.
maybe you had them.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're hanging up in a trophy case somewhere, I'm sure.
I hope.
Cool. Well, Laura, thanks so much for chatting today. Where can we find you if you want to follow along with your adventures?
Oh yeah, on Instagram I'm Mamita Lorita. So that's basically where my life is right now. So you can follow me there.
Awesome. Well, hope to see you out in Colorado at some point soon, and happy trails.
Yeah, happy trails. Thanks.
Yep. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.